أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The topic of my speech today is dangers of the age and safeguarding of Islamic values. To say the least, this is a vast subject, and I will, inshallah, bring to your attention some of the many dangers that are affecting mankind and threatening the very basis of our moral and just Islamic values, beliefs and standards. It is reassuring that Islam helps and provides us with guidance which, if followed and practiced, will safeguard us who hold Islam dear to our hearts from all evils and immoral dangers that exist within society. The dangers I have chosen to discuss are materialism, alcohol, gambling, the internet, the free social mixing of men and women, diseases such as AIDS that are closely related to unchecked and uncontrolled promiscuity, and finally deceit and untruthfulness. The first topic under discussion is materialism, and the Holy Quran refers to this condition where it states, "Vying with each other for amassing wealth had made you oblivious to God, even when you reached the graveyards. Nay, you will soon come to know. Nay, again, you will soon come to know. Nay, were you to know the certain knowledge, you will surely see hell in this very life." The desire to own things and to fulfill that desire occupies a very prominent place in the struggle to find contentment for most people. Newspapers, cinema, television and radio repeatedly broadcast to lure prospective and often susceptible customers to buy the latest accessories or other fashionable luxury items. And shopping centres are specifically designed with images of fashion and glamour to entice us as we walk past. Unfortunately, the term "keeping up with the Joneses" is more prevalent throughout the world. A high-paying job, a fully furnished modern house, a new car and expensive clothes are high on the priority lists of most people who see them as must-have commodities, rather than asking themselves, do I really need it or can I really afford it? When material wealth and values becomes your goal in life, you become blind to the financial nightmare that inevitably comes with it. In pursuit of that goal, a person often becomes selfish and loses consideration for the welfare of others and has no regard for the true values of life at all. A superficial glance at some national economies, especially those in the West, give the false impression that they are rich and flourishing. A superficial look at normal family living standards also gives this same false impression. However, on close inspection, you will find that in most cases, all the amassed wealth of a nation or a family in the form of houses, cars, furniture, clothing, and major household items have been bought on credit or at a hidden price. Any economy, whether national or individual, which relies on spending unearned income, does so at a very high cost. Most economies are run on the basis of interest, and banks are ever willing to lend money. 30 years ago, it was not so easy to borrow money from any financial institution, as there were safeguards in place based on personal income and the ability to repay the loan. However, many of these restrictions have now been removed, so much so that people who are engulfed in debt are encouraged to borrow more, and ultimately they are not really borrowing from the banks, they are borrowing from their own personal future. The promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam, has addressed the dangers of pursuing the wealth of the world. He said, Too much indulgence in luxurious, easy, irresponsible living is a curse, as it is ill-mannered and heartless to be indifferent to the sufferings of others. Every rich man is as much answerable over the due discharge of his obligations to his Creator and his fellow men as a poor man is. In fact, a rich man is more answerable. Indeed, how unfortunate is he, for the sake of this brief life in this world, who completely turns away from God." Unquote. The Egyptian pharaohs' tombs were filled with all their riches and belongings, as they expected to take it with them into their afterlife. They arrogantly thought they could take their amassed wealth with them into the next world. But at least they thought about it, but wrongly concluded about the hereafter. People in this age seem to have no thoughts of their life after death, and this is the main cause of their moral and spiritual decline. They remain engrossed in worldly pursuits and desires until death comes upon them, and they find they have wasted all their precious life chasing perishable wealth instead of pursuing the Creator of all their wealth. And this increasing pursuit of materialism has caused and continues to cause a decline in spirituality. It is the blind craze for worldly things that prevents disbelievers from acquiring the higher and much more commendable moral and spiritual values. The Holy Quran states, "O ye who believe, spend out of what we have bestowed upon you, before the day comes wherein there shall be no buying or selling, nor friendship, nor intercession, and it is those who disbelieve that do wrong to themselves." So a Muslim should always try to follow the example of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Although he became the undisputed ruler of Arabia, his lifestyle was very simple, and this simple life is one that is best and uncomplicated to follow. As far as the material world is concerned, we should question the true need for material goods. We should avoid borrowing money and paying interest for luxury items. We should eat simply and well and should not waste food. Regular fasting promotes a real understanding of the needs of those who have not, and a desire to help the poor and to eradicate poverty. We should give willingly to charitable causes and respond to all appeals of the Khalifa of the day. We should encourage an interest in sport and other outdoor pursuits, as well as personal hobbies, rather than visiting expensive restaurants, cinemas, and other similar establishments. Islam doesn't forbid us to seek worldly pursuits, that is, to gain knowledge or wealth, or occupy ourselves in business and industry. It only changes our point of view. It teaches us to give preference to divine commands over everything else, and in this way we acquire spiritual blessings and God's pleasures as well as worldly attractions. Devotion to God doesn't deprive us of worldly rewards. In fact, these rewards follow us like a servant. Our goal is our God, and we must keep this goal in our mind every minute of our life. Excessive materialism is at the root of many social problems, such as gambling, narcotics and crime, which often also lead to family, social and community breakdown. Likewise, an even greater malaise which destroys family life and has a huge destructive impact on society at large is the problem of alcohol. The promised Messiah Islam addressed this issue when he said, "O ye wise, this world will not last forever. Take hold of yourself and be steady. Give up every excess. Leave all intoxicants. Alcohol is not alone in that it destroys man, but opium, marijuana, cannabis, and every intoxicant that becomes habitual disrupts the mind and eventually kills you. You must avoid them." Unquote. In many societies, alcohol consumption seems to be the staple diet among an increasing number of people, especially the younger generation. It also seems to be an irreplaceable component of socializing and other forms of entertainment. No social gathering seems complete without alcohol as its soulmate. At weekends, the goal in life of some people, mainly from the younger generation, is not to have a good time, as was the usual practice some years ago, but to go out and get drunk. that is, to lose one's senses, decorum and modesty. According to the independent newspaper of the 2nd of November 2005, a large majority of people consume alcohol, and it is well known that an increasing number of these become alcoholics. 1.1 million adults in England suffer from alcohol dependency. Consumption of alcohol not only destroys the individual, it destroys their family, their economy, and their physical and mental health. And in the long term, it damages the community at large. As a direct outcome of alcohol consumption, it has been proved beyond any doubt that morality and a sense of responsibility cease to exert any influence on those afflicted. Criminal activity also pursues a relentless advance in terms of thefts, of burglaries, of violence, domestic violence, child abuse, rapes, suicides, and death by dangerous driving, to name but a few. The British Crime Survey of 2004-2005 revealed that 48% of all violent crime and 60% in cases of stranger violence occurred where the offender was under the influence of alcohol. And according to a study by the United Kingdom Institute of Alcohol Studies of 2006, entitled Alcohol in Europe, it says, apparently 1 in every 4 people in Britain enjoys drinking with one single aim, to get completely drunk. Binge drinking is no longer a male domain either. Adolescent girls and young women are just as likely to go out and get plastered as males." Unquote. To redress the issue of binge drinking and alcoholism, the British government have, in my opinion, erroneously, actually increased the number of hours a licensed premises is allowed to remain open. In fact, some areas, alcohol premises are allowed to remain open 24 hours per day. The teachings of Islam in this regard have given the perfect answer, the perfect antidote, and the perfect reasoning. The Holy Quran states, "They ask thee concerning wine and the game of hazard. Say, in both there is great sin, and also some advantages for men, but their sin is greater than their advantage." Unquote. It is reported by Anas, may Allah be pleased with him, that the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, "God's curse falls on 10 groups of people who deal with alcohol. The one who distills it, the one for whom it has been distilled, the one who drinks it, the one who transports it, the one to whom it has been brought, the one who serves it, the one who sells it, the one who utilizes money from it, the one who buys it, and the one who buys it for someone else." Further to this, the Holy Prophet of Islam ﷺ said, "Alcohol is the mother of all evils, and it is the most shameful of evils." So we should therefore teach our children about the bad effects of alcohol and should lead by example. We should avoid pubs and bars, even though our non-Muslim friends may frequent them, and we should only ever offer them non-alcoholic drinks. So let us now turn our attention to gambling. A recent survey by a United Kingdom newspaper revealed some very interesting but shocking statistics in regard to the UK as a gambling nation. £50 billion was spent on gambling in the UK in 2005. Since 2001, there has been a 700% increase on the money spent on gambling, and more frightening, since the year 2001, there has been a 23,000% increase in online internet betting. It has also been reported there are 370,000 people addicted to gambling, and it is expected that this number will increase to 700,000 people within the next 5 years. In total disregard to the increasing number of addicts and the destruction of their family lives, the British government, seduced by the lure of extra revenue from gambling, have this year introduced the Gambling Act of 2006, which will allow 8 small, 8 large and 1 regional or super casinos to be built. The whole nation is also encouraged to gamble each week on the national lottery, where gamblers are enticed by the lure of instant fortunes. and as a result, those people who seek to climb out of the depths of poverty are usually the ones who waste so much money on the lottery, leaving them more and more penniless and frustrated as they are unable to fulfill their dreams. Mr. Mark Griffiths, a professor of gambling at the Nottingham University, has commented, "Gambling is a voluntary form of taxation, although people don't see it as such. By expanding gambling, the government can bring in more money. There has been no great public push to liberalise it. It has all come from the gaming industry and the government. But if you try to reverse it, there would be uproar." Unquote. So to many, gambling may become very addictive, and due to the ease of doing it online on the internet, it has become a much more accessible idea to certain groups of people. It's very simple to turn on a computer and log onto a website. Everywhere on the internet are recollections of users who started by placing a small bet and eventually ended up losing their homes as they try to recoup their losses by spending more and more on gambling. Even worse, there are players who go into major debt because they use their credit cards and bank accounts to gamble. And this can result in severe financial hardships, bankruptcy, marital and family strife, and unfortunately in some instances, suicide. Islam gives the answer and solution to the ever-growing maladies of alcohol, drugs and gambling. It simply commands, abstain from them that you may be saved. There are no other means and no shortcuts to control this malignant epidemic. Islam's social teachings are very important for the protection and survival of the family system. These dangers tempt and attract us to their worldly advantages, until before we realize it, we are sucked into an addictive behavior, so much so that we justify to ourselves no harm in partaking in these vices. And this is a very slippery slope that we must guard against at an embryonic stage. A greater openness of money matters between husband and wife, engaging in more exciting interests such as study skills, creative crafts, and spending for causes are some of the solutions to benefit the moral and spiritual wealth of mankind. We have all heard of the many dangers of the internet. Although some of these dangers have been greatly exaggerated, it does not alter the fact that a computer and its operator connected to the internet are susceptible to very real attacks on their conscience, both overtly and covertly. The internet can be a very useful tool for the pursuit of knowledge. However, there are people who feel compelled to use their knowledge about computers to access files remotely in illegal and unethical ways. Subsequently, they make life difficult for other internet users. There is no true and proper policing system of the internet, and it is open to abuse by unscrupulous companies and individuals seeking to amass great wealth or knowledge without regard to the moral well-being or vulnerability of the people they are targeting. The internet is also open to abuse by criminals. For instance, there are paedophiles and other perverted sexual deviants who try to ensnare young people by pretending to be someone other than who they actually are. And this can be illustrated in the use of what are known to be chat rooms. People can enter a chat room without any verification of who they are. The anonymity of the internet allows chat room participants to feel more comfortable, to speak without fear of being judged. The majority of internet users may be genuinely looking for a person of their own age and interest to talk to, but how can they tell? One's true identity is never revealed online, and as a result, one's inhibitions and social conscience are lowered. Therefore, chat room conversations and topics of discussion are usually vastly different from normal interaction and often include topics one would never speak of to someone's face. In chat rooms, discussions can be violent, abusive, and can even promote hatred against others. The internet also gives free access to shopping, music, games, pornography, and films, where a person can spend many hours pursuing these often addictive and useless pastimes which distract from healthy, normal daily life. Internet use, no matter how innocent it may seem, can become addictive and push the user beyond a balanced life. It is becoming increasingly challenging to monitor someone's activity on the internet while respecting their privacy at the same time. Parents worry that children will have contact with someone online who may wish to harm them, and there is always the fear that increased internet use will lead to children accessing inappropriate content such as pornography, racism and violence. A child's safety is hard enough to protect in real life, let alone on the vast expanse of the internet. They should be restricted to using the internet to access information and for talking to pre-existing friends only, and the computer should be in a room that is under the responsible control of the parents. Children should also be encouraged to read books and other literature as a prime source for gaining knowledge. The fifth danger I will discuss is the free social mixing between men and women. In Islam, free mixing of men and women from the time they become sexually aware is prohibited. And on the face of it, this may appear rather harsh. But if we examine the effects of unrestricted contact between the sexes, we will soon see the wisdom behind this restriction. Today, in the world, every type of crime that results from free mixing the sexes is on the increase, with a parallel degeneration of morals. Whilst morality is on the decline, immodesty and licentiousness seem to be more and more acceptable to modern society. In the West particularly, men and women can walk semi-naked in public, swim topless, drink and dance in bars and clubs, and feel free to have casual sex with anybody they choose. Pornography, prostitution, adultery, divorce, one-parent families, abortion, cohabiting couples and the same-sex couples, as well as immodest dress and speech, seem to be much more acceptable now than they were in the past, and the results and consequences are quite devastating. The so-called permissive society in which we live has proved to be quite destructive in terms of family unity, human dignity and self-respect. Families are often torn apart, diseases are spread and people's characters become twisted and distorted. There are many practices in modern society that will slowly erode the institution and acceptability of purdah for both Muslim men and women. If the Islamic concept of purdah is not clear to both men and women, then it is an institution that will be lost. Both men and women and their children, as well as offering their prayers in congregation, should make keeping company of the righteous and regular attendance at Jamaat functions their priority to avoid segregating themselves from Islamic values. Islam restricts this free and unrestrained intermixing of the sexes. Salma reported that she and Maymuna, who were both wives of the Prophet ﷺ, were with the Prophet ﷺ when the son of Maktoum, who was blind, came to speak with him. The Holy Prophet ﷺ told his wives to observe purdah in front of the visitor. Salma said, "O Messenger of Allah, he is a blind man and will not see us." The Prophet ﷺ said, "He may be blind, but you are not. And do you not see him?" In the Quran, God explains the essence of Islamic purdah or covering, which embodies the attitude of both men and women and is reflected in dress and behavior. The Holy Quran states, "Say to the believing men that they restrain their eyes and guard their private parts. That is pure for them. And say to the believing women that they restrain their eyes and guard their private parts." So not only do women have to cover themselves in front of men who are strangers to them, but they are also required to lower their gaze. Men are also required to observe purdah, thus preventing them from falling into moral lapses. Purdah should be observed in the most appropriate manner, but it should not be restrictive. We should never become lax in our values, especially as more and more of us are now interacting at work and other social gatherings. We must still maintain the spirit of purdah. We should try to avoid attending office parties and other functions, especially those where alcohol, music, singing and dancing is the order of the day. Handshaking between men and women should also be avoided, without embarrassment to the one who is greeting you. The more frequent the opportunities for social interchange between men and women, the more likely chances are that the natural attraction which God has placed between them will result in relationships that are bound to endanger morality in society. Then there are diseases such as AIDS, which are partly fueled by uncontrolled promiscuity and sexuality. A decline in moral and spiritual standards almost inevitably leads to a decline in physical health. The spread of sexually transmitted diseases, as well as neurotic, mental and psychological diseases that claim hundreds of thousands of people, are among the acknowledged effects of sexual promiscuity. And one of the most dangerous diseases is AIDS, which is caused by the HIV virus. This virus is responsible for damaging the body's immunity, leaving it vulnerable to all factors of decay. And AIDS has reached all the continents of the world and continues more or less unabated, despite certain drugs that may prolong the life of those afflicted. Millions of people have succumbed to this menace, a fact that provides a modern piece of evidence for the words of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said, "It never happens that permissiveness overwhelms a people to the extent that they display their acts of sex shamelessly, and they are not uniquely punished by God. Among them, invariably, pestilence is made to spread, and such other diseases, the like of which have never been witnessed by their forefathers." So again, we should encourage an interest in sport and other outdoor pursuits, as well as other interests such as design and construction, or agriculture and gardening, rather than watching unsuitable, indecent, lewd or violent programs and films on the television or in cinemas. The final danger I want to highlight is deceit and untruthfulness. Falsehood is the basis, the starting point of most sins. Today, lack of truth is found all over the world without any exception. Of all the moral evils, lying is the worst and has a variety of complex causes. Most people look upon the telling of a so-called white lie as socially acceptable. A lie is a lie no matter what color you paint it, and no matter how acceptable it is to society. Many moral, social and economic problems in the world stem from lack of truthfulness, honesty and integrity. Without truth, there can be no proper justice, and without justice, bitterness and recrimination is spawned. In the end, man's inhumanity to his fellow man pursues a relentless and most damaging course. When we allow materialistic values to enter our daily life and rely on falsehood, then we surround ourselves with unscrupulous people and thus get into a spiral of betrayal, of trust and treachery. Speaking the truth is a great virtue that should be instilled in every person and in every child, as if it was an actual limb without which the body cannot function. For a truly truthful person, it is essential they follow the truth without any regard to their own personal desires or interests. Only those people who stick to the truth, even at the risk of loss of life, honor or property, are really truthful. Once a man approached the Holy Prophet ﷺ and explained to him he had many evil habits, which included lying. He asked how he could free himself from such a sinful way of life. The Holy Prophet ﷺ gave a very simple answer. He told him to always tell the truth, as this would rid him of all his evil habits. And the man soon realized that if someone inquired about his day-to-day activities, he would have no choice but to tell the truth. Submission to truth proved to be the most appropriate medicine and a cure for his evil ways. The teachings of the Holy Quran in regard to truthfulness is complete and of the highest order. The Holy Quran states, "Truthful men and truthful women will have a great reward from Allah." In this verse, the nature and philosophy of the truth is described, and all aspects are fully covered. The Holy Quran says that truth should be for God alone. We know we cannot hide anything from Him. Also, if we really believe that God is omniscient, then we cannot hide behind a lie or falsehood to save our skins. We should therefore self-reflect every day about our own actions and their consequences, and strive to reform in accordance with Islamic teaching. A verse of the Holy Quran summarizes the requirements mankind needs to fulfill in order to maintain and preserve high moral standards and to shield them from evil influences. It states, "Verily Allah requires you to abide by justice and to treat with grace and give like the giving of kin to kin, and forbids indecency and manifest evil and transgression. He admonishes you that you may take heed." The words of this verse are quite plain and simple and can be easily understood by persons of all intellectual abilities. In a nutshell, this verse has enjoined justice, the doing of good to others, kindness as between brothers, and has forbidden indecency, manifest evil, and wrongful transgression. This particular verse of the Holy Quran combines all the essential qualities of a perfect teaching and encompasses the complete course of moral and spiritual evolution and growth of man. And by following such divine guidance, a true believer is ensured delivery from all conceivable vices. As Ahmadi Muslims, we should remain as close as possible to the Khalifa of the day and his instruction, as they will safeguard us from the ills of the age. Khilafat is a blessed institution, a gift from Allah the Almighty, which we should cherish and use to help us maintain our Islamic values. If we ignore his guidance, then we have no excuse for our moral decline. Avoiding vices of the modern age is indeed the fundamental way of fighting our modern-day jihad, the upward struggle for self-improvement, achieving a closeness to Allah and vying in the doing of good deeds. Unless we remove these vices from ourselves, we cannot reach Allah, and we cannot convey the beauties of our perfect religion to others unless we are practicing it. In his pursuit of theoretical worldly happiness and contentment, and by developing selfish ways, man disregards the true purpose of his life, which is to attain closeness to God and the road to true happiness and contentment. The Holy Quran states, "Those who believe and whose hearts find comfort in the remembrance of Allah." Aye, it is in the remembrance of Allah that hearts can find comfort. This beautiful verse embodies a profound truth. The more the people of the world gain the paltry goods of this life, the greater becomes the hunger and the consequent burning of their heart. But as for those who seek God, the more they turn to Him, the greater is their peace of mind. And this shows that the search for God is the innermost yearning of human nature and the real goal of man's life. And when that goal is attained, man begins to enjoy perfect peace of mind. In conclusion, I have only highlighted a small number of the many dangers and obstacles facing mankind today, especially the unity and stability of our family life. It is only by faithfully and sincerely adopting the injunctions of the Holy Quran and the practice of the Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Muslims can preserve and safeguard their moral Islamic values. Faithful practice of Islamic values will safeguard them for the next generation. Muslims, and especially Ahmadi Muslims, should be easily recognizable in modern society as torchbearers for strong moral values, contributing to a moral and just society for now and for the future of our children. Jazakallah.